All right, King's Gambit me to get us underway as we review round 22.
Well, you don't question things until you see things happen. And on Saturday night we saw Tom de Koning really challenge Max Gawn in the ruck like I hadn't seen him challenge for quite some time. I'm not saying he beat him. I think it was pretty much a break even, both parties sort of doing their thing. So Max is hard to compete with. Max is a game wrecker. He's the one that clearly has a huge impact on Melbourne's ability to move the ball, their ability to hold up defensively, and then their ability to score. So when you see it, you think, okay, I'll go and have a deeper look at Max and just see what he is to Melbourne. So when Max has 5 or more score involvements, they're 11-0. When he has 4 or less, they're a 50-50 team. They're in all sorts. So I'm looking at it thinking, okay, so is Max the one that just creates all the scoring? And if that's the case, what are the opposition doing now? So why don't teams tag Max? That was going through my mind. Why do we tag Tom Stewart? We tag Harris Andrews. We tag people that are interceptors and they're game wreckers, and we try and delay their time so they can't get over an intercept mark. The only team that tags Max is Port Adelaide. Now, your mathematician, man, he'll probably have, if Collingwood beat Brisbane this Friday night, then he'll probably have Melbourne going to Port Adelaide week 1. So I'm just trying to work. Everyone's trying to look ahead. We're all in a hurry to get to what the finals look like and who's playing where. I just think this final series is about your trump cards. And Melbourne's trump card and the game's biggest trump card is Max Gawn. So this is Max's time. If they are to be a multiple premiership winning team, I think it's Max's month. Not this next 2 weeks, but once we hit the finals, because he'll be tagged first week, and how he handles that. And his poorest form is against Port Adelaide. Of all the teams that he struggles against, Ken Hinkley says, you're not beating us, or we're going to make it really hard. You know, they go after him physically. Remember the off-the-ball stuff we've had multiple times against Max and that he hasn't handled? So it's going to come again. We had the discussion, I don't know what round it was this year, might be about round 10. Remember he was picked off a couple of times off the ball? Remember Ollie Lord got stuck in him when he was down on his haunches on the boundary one time, and no one really come to support him. And we made a bit of a thing of it, and Simon Goodwood said, no, that's you're buying, that's rubbish. You're getting involved in things that are just rubbish. Well, it won't be rubbish in three games' time, Gerard, week 1 of the finals. But if he can overcome all of these things, and if they can support him, and if he can go on a tear and have a massive 3 weeks, get that first final on the road, then they are rolling. So I'm excited, but every team's got a trump card. They're probably saying the same thing about De Goey at Collingwood. They're probably saying the same thing, about Zach Butters or Horn Francis they're talking about today from Port. Whoever your trump card is, how do you set them up for the big month? But I think Max is I think he's the one player that can just destroy a final series without a likely challenger.
Do you think it was purely coincidental that he was less dominant when Grundy was present on the field, or do you think that they are linked?
No, I don't think they're linked.
So it was just a coincidence. De Koning
played really
the better of him to enough of a degree.
Yeah, and it was the conditions were poor, so it was a tough night. But I think they only scored 3 goals from stoppage. So it was one of those nights that's different. So I didn't think De Koning could do that. So there's 2 sides to this coin. So going into the game, I thought that Max would take control. I wasn't worried about what Grundy did forward of centre because I don't think he's going to be the answer long term there anyway. No one does. Simon Goodwin doesn't. But you've got to give the player the chance to fight through. So the Max Gawn discussion, whilst we bring it up today, is really going to ram home in 3 weeks what Port Adelaide do, how Melbourne handle it. We talked last week about 7:40, or 2 weeks ago, about 7:40 Burke Street at 7:50 Friday night. Can Brisbane beat Collingwood on the road without Moore, Dacos, and I think Sidebottom? I mean, if they don't beat them this week, Gerard. So there's so many things to play out, but the biggest trump card in the game may have to go to Port Adelaide week 1 and show that he cannot be tagged and he cannot be stopped.
The Monday means test is for Jamison whiskey, triple distilled, twice as smooth, one of a kind. All right, so the big issue is that Saturday night game. They were the two in-form teams. It was second versus fifth. It was a measure of both of them. It was a high-pressure game. It was every inch a finals atmosphere. And it was Carlton who set the tone. That first quarter, I don't know how they could have scored any less with the opportunities they created. It was every time sort of Carlton threatened to stretch Melbourne responded. Start of the final quarter, Carlton makes their move and then Melbourne snap at their heels. So let's do everything other than the single moment in the arc, and then we're going to debate that. What did we learn out of Saturday night?
We learnt that Carlton are real, I think, is the first thing. I mean, it's easy to talk teams up across the journey. You sort of still need to see it against the best. And I thought that given what was out, not what was just playing, for both parties have got players on the sidelines, but given Carlton's outs, I was really shocked that they were able to do what they did. I thought Melbourne would find a way to win, and when it gets to crunch time, they generally do. But they were persistent. Carlton. They were the role players are just doing what they need to do. The May-Curnow battle was just all-consuming, and I know he kicked 2 goals, I think, in the end, and May had his moments. There was times where Charlie was able to go body to body with Stephen May, which you don't see often. He didn't really get much space. So that, to me, that was something I couldn't stop watching. Max in the ruck, De Koning, it was stepping out the front of traffic. It was quite refreshing to see this young guy who's only recently signed. It looked like, okay, is this a man with the weight of the world off his shoulders and just going to play? And it makes me think, do you really need a second ruck in your team? Do you really need Pitnet in your team? If you've got De Koning wanting, playing like that in the ruck, I'll be giving him as much time as I can in the ruck. And the argument, we had a good chat last night with Joey, how do you get Harry Mackay back into the team? I think you say to Harry, hey, listen, you're going to have to play 20% ruck to give the young fella a chop out while still serving a purpose up forward. Otherwise, I don't know whether we can squeeze you in. You can't carry all of them as talls because you want to keep your run up. I thought Newman was fantastic. He's a player that we're pretty quick to be hard on. So I think we have to acknowledge some of his good work. Viney, we're all consumed with Viney, but they had the answers, Carlton. So 2 tough teams, like two old goats, just banging heads for the whole 120 minutes, and in the end it comes down to 50-50 whether you think it was a goal or not. But in the end, it's a small margin victory that both teams walk away saying, hey, we've got a little bit of work to do, but we're in pretty good shape.
So I thought the most telling moments at the start of the last quarter, Paddy Cripps with Paddy Dow and Lockie Fogarty. And that tells you of Carlton's evolution in one freeze frame. Who's running shotgun with Cripps? Well, it's 2 blokes who are fringe players, really, and they are filling spots of star quality, and they're doing it in such a manner as to be able to play their roles and meet their markers. I thought they were such telling moments in the evolution of that team.
It's almost like Carlton have been late to the party with role players, and now they've embraced it. Everything clicks. That when your stars get the marquee roles, hey, you've got to deliver, blah, blah, blah. I thought Cripps was huge again. He was up against an angry mob, and he matched them for physicality, and he just was terrific. He only had the 5 clearances, but it's more the contested stuff that I love from him. They probably should have gapped them earlier, like you said, and it probably shouldn't have been as tight late. But we wait and see where it takes Carlton because their numbers are the best in the comp. So it's just a matter of can they do it from outside the top 4, really.
I think I might have asked you a couple of weeks ago, or maybe last week. Do you have the imagination to see them in a preliminary final?
In a prelim, yeah, I could see it. I wouldn't be. I just think the top 4 generally wrap around and come back. We did some numbers on it. So look, since we were talking about this the other day, so I think the final series changed at 2016, where we had the week off before the finals rather than so the pre-finals bye. And there's always been one team. So I think in 5 of the 7 years, there's been one team from the bottom 4 of the 8 get through to prelim or better.
There's been a glut of teams against
5
what had
of
happened
7.
previously that have gone out in straight sets.
It never used to happen at
No.
all. So it's tough. It's going to be tough. We did the numbers last night. Fourth is the death seat. No one wins it from fourth. In 23 years, no one's won it from fourth. So that's just ridiculous, really. So, history tells us stories, but we don't have to subscribe, and you're always there to change it. But
there wouldn't be many years where the team sitting fifth is playing the best footy on the way into the finals. I think that's the rider here, isn't it?
You still got to play the extra game.
Yep.
So to me, that they cancel each other out. The extra game's big. You don't think it is today, but when you may have to add travel to that second week, there's a lot of things to come into the mix. But it's just, to be honest, it's probably the biggest form reversal I've seen in season for some time. We said they had a whole heap of small problems. Remember us having this conversation? There's a lot to fix.
It wasn't as drastic as the overall, but there was a lot to work through and fix.
There's a suite of small issues that how do you fix them all? And you sort of all balls are in the air, if you like. So Vossi's done a great job, and I think that they've become a really honest footy club now. Honest with each other, honest with roles, honest with performance, and they play an honest brand of footy that just fronts up now and is brutal in its own way. And then they've just got to add a little bit. You just love a little bit more class. I don't know what they do with Walsh when he gets back. Do they just throw him in the middle and just let him go as he has done?
But this is the bit I like is they need a little bit more class, and I agree with that. And they're going to add Walsh and Chera. So there it is. That's the class to add.
So I had a look at Chera's numbers before you leave Chera. So he of his last 28 clearances, so there's clearances and there's clearances, right? So we're looking up Ashcroft and seeing his effective clearances. So there's guys that win you a clearance and put the next player into space or find an avenue out that continues your possession chain. He's 28 from 28. His last 28 clearances, all 28, they've maintained possession on the next possession.
All right. I've got the imagination for it. The big issue was the events of Saturday night, what they mean for the finals race for Carlton and for Melbourne. And the debate is how it finished. The game was decided in the arc in a moment where the technology isn't all that we would hope for. And how is it applied and what are the parameters that are put around it? So just as a starting point, the ramifications of which way that goes, Kingy, are enormous. Potentially, not potentially, just hugely influential in the premiership race as to whether Melbourne finish second or not.
Yeah. Yeah, or you have to protect the scoring of your competition. We had this argument on Saturday, and I even talked about the boundary line. If it becomes a score, it should be reviewed. Now, nothing has to be corrected every time. But if you've got to go in the bunker effectively, make sure the integrity of what you put on the scoreboard, which is at the end the only thing that matters, review a lot of other things. You have to protect it. You have to be accurate. You have to be bulletproof in your review.
So we had a World Cup penalty shootout decided by a millimetre.
Yeah.
In the US Sweden match, which was technology at its absolute finest, as in refinement, not necessarily at its best. There's probably a little bit of a leap you have to take to concede that is an absolute reflection of what happened, but that's how refined it is there. So a couple of different layers to this. The first is in what we have, which is definitive evidence required to overturn the umpire's call. Do you think the right call was made on the night?
Oh, I got no idea. No, I thought it was a goal. Seeing, I couldn't see him touch it. Put it that way. But I can sort of understand the position the goal umpire was in. If he thought it was touched, well, he's just saying I thought it was touched. So I don't know. I'm guessing, but I thought it was a goal. Does that make sense? But
yeah,
I wouldn't be absolute either way.
Yep, and we have to be absolute to overturn it.
Yeah,
that's our position.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't do that in the elimination final last year. We had an extrapolation. We went on a probability and overturned a Richmond goal, which determined a team season. That felt like an overreach. and Saturday night was that's the actual parameters that were put in place. Is you have to definitively show where it was not touched to overturn it. It's almost proving a negative, incidentally, but
we go with a soft call, which makes it difficult.
So let's I just want to play Caleb Marchbank on the ABC post-match again.
Where did you hit it? Was it on your fingertips or your forearm? Where did the ball hit you?
On the fingertips. But I'm just hoping for anywhere.
So, and this is interesting. If we were taking evidence here, right? So Marchbank says it touched his fingertips.
Yeah.
And we think the goal umpire believes it actually brushed his wrist on the other arm. So they're two big differences as to what it touched. If there was no soft call and we simply referred it to the ARC and said, you use technology and come back with the best, the most likely outcome of what happened, that would have come back as a goal without the soft call.
Would it, yeah. So you're saying that you would just leave it totally with the ARC?
No, I'm just proposing if we didn't have a soft call, I think that comes back as a goal because there's nothing to show that the ball was touched.
But the vision's poor.
This is the next layer of how much technology do we have and how is it deployed?
Yeah, you couldn't have been absolute on what we saw on Saturday.
So you'd have to make a judgment call as to what it was.
Yeah.
I feel like it probably wasn't touched on what we saw. But you have to add in the goal umpire who's 2 metres from it with the side-on views.
It doesn't pass the SOS test for me. The SOS test of all those years ago where he's claiming he touched it. In the end, you just trust your own eye. Did it look like a goal? Did it look like it was touched? And you probably live with it. Yeah, I think if it was paid a goal, we'd all live with that, wouldn't we? If the umpire said, "Look, I'm not sure. I think it's a goal. I don't know if he touched it. Can we go upstairs?" Then Melbourne win the game.
So this is where I'm interested. So what did the goal umpire think? So instead of just having a look at it, what are we looking at here? I think that's worth knowing for the ARC reviewer. So the goal umpire, where do you think it was touched? What am I looking at? Oh, I think it brushed his right wrist. I think it touched the outstretched fingers of his left hand. I think that's worth knowing as the reviewer. So what am I testing the umpire on here? Marchbank said he touched it with his outstretched fingers. There's no evidence that happened. That there is the possibility that it hit his right forearm. And then if you apply the technology all the way through, which you were talking about on Saturday, do you pay Marchbank a free kick because Van Rooyen's dragged down his right arm and denied him the chance to touch it?
No, you don't pay the free kick. What I was talking about on Saturday, Hodgie skewed the discussion a little bit and said I was digging myself in deeper. You've got the boundary line is a pretty simple. It's the same as the goal line. They're pretty simple things to work out. If you think the ball's over the line, so the Jeremy Cameron handball receive for goal is not paid a goal. You're protecting the scoreboard, which is the only thing you have to protect. As soon as you lose control of the scoreboard, it either has integrity or it doesn't. As soon as you lose control of the scoreboard, you're in trouble with your code. Every code, any code. So that's why I brought it up on Saturday. Now, you can agree with that or not, but we review goals that go back for a centre bounce and then pull the whole 36 players back down for a kick out regularly. I would say that happens once every 2 weeks. So if the Cameron one was pulled back for a boundary throw-in, it would take the same amount of time, 15 seconds, reset the clock and we go again, and you maintain the integrity of your scoreboard. So no one's talking about the Cameron stuff because it didn't cost the game. But they're going on and on and on about this one, which is a very similar occurrence. So I think you either have it expand fractionally to other components that only involve boundary line, not free kicks because they're an interpretation for the umpires and you don't want to be getting involved in that space. But it ain't that hard to look at that in totality. That was the point I was making Friday, and it's just ironic that we're talking about 30 more metres around. It's the same line, Gerard. It's the same line. It's just the scoring part of the boundary line. So the discussion repeats again.
I think the difficulty with the system has always been the searching for the touched ball. So the technology is definitely better on the posts and on the goal line than when the system was first introduced. And it's not always right because the same cameras aren't deployed at all times for games. But the search for the touched, and I've never been in favour of this, is that is hugely challenging, I think, and you can end up digging yourself a big hole.
Isn't it the search for the correct call, though? Not the touch. Isn't it just the search to be correct?
You're searching for flicked fingers or bent fingers.
Yeah, or nothing. Or the fact you may see nothing. Isn't that? Are we searching for the right answer?
Yeah. Sometimes the technology can't give you what you're searching for.
So
and
the technology's
that's
not good
probably
enough.
Saturday night. I'm not sure that there's any technology that can get Saturday night's one.
Gee
You can
whiz,
get it
I see
on the goal line.
saw
You
the
can
goal.
get it against the post.
So the soccer one was pretty good compared to ours, Gerard.
Yeah, but you're looking for a brush on a finger or a forearm, not a line. I think there's more you can do on lines. I think we've got the posts as close as we can get them with the edge.
Yeah.
But I think it's really difficult to find the touched ball. There's no computer projection that can give you whether that ball brushed fingers or forearm. Yeah. That actually can't. That's a fantasy of an idea that you can get that. And so you've got the goal umpire who's 2 metres away, and you go, well,
But I don't think
you're
this
the guy
is,
paid to do it.
It's never going to be 100% correct, is it?
No, and that there's sort of a conceit in the way that we use technology is that we can get the right result here. I watch sport all the time, and you go, I just think we got the wrong result by a different mechanism.
I think
through
we've
technology.
got to go back to correcting the howler only, the absolute howler. And the one that's so marginal like this, we just got to live with the goal umpire. If he thinks it's touched and calls it touched, it's touched. Unless you can absolutely, like if it's nearly snapped someone's wrist in touching the ball and we say that's clearly been touched, let's correct that. It's not a goal. Let's pay the point. But these ones are just, you can argue about them for hours. And really, you end up back at the same spot. And we'll do the same discussion in 3 weeks' time.
Yeah.
I mean, how many times have we had this chat? Seriously.
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah.
And sometimes the technology has improved, but not all the way.
Yeah.
3 goals up against Sydney, lose by 2 points. 3 goals up against the Suns, lose by 7 points. 6 goals up against the Giants, lose by 5 points. 4 goals up against Collingwood, lose by 12 points. 2 goals up against Port Adelaide, lose by 14 points. 3 goals up against Geelong, lose in a close one. And what looked like a low-stress afternoon early tightened up on them dramatically. And again, they're in a tooth and nail struggle to make the 8.
This is one of the great mysteries of the last, not just this season, probably last season as well. You know, Luke Beveridge has taken this club to 2 grand finals and won them a premiership. So full credit to what he's been able to do. But let's just talk about the now. It's a team that really has talent that is the envy of the competition. They're going to have probably 3 guys in the All-Australian team this year. They'll probably have the captain. The Bontempelli, English, and Liberatore are the 3 names. Norton, who we've worried about whether he's a forward or a back, has kicked 40 goals for the year. Jamara has shown that he's going to be the answer. He's kicked 33. They really don't want for much. They really don't. And by their own design, they're going and getting a Liam Jones, who will be 33 before the start of next season. These are short-term plays. They're short-term plays because you're thinking you're going to have success. You're not putting 20 games in a Liam Jones just because, we want to be a nice team down back. You know, we want to develop. You're not doing that to develop. You're not developing the player nor another component of your team that you want to punch 20 games into. You got Bontempelli's turning 28 in November, McRae's 29 in a couple of weeks, Treloar's 31 before the start of next year, and Liberatore's just turned 31. Their time is now to win that second flag under Luke Beveridge. So it's almost unfathomable to me. I can't believe they've won 4 of their last 11 games. They've beaten North Melbourne, Fremantle, Essendon, and Richmond. Let's be honest, most teams that are any good have beaten those teams. In that period, so this is the fascination for me. In that period, they're the number 1 clearance team in the comp and the second best at contested possession. So they start with the ball more than anyone. So they start with it, yet they don't score, and they don't really defend that well either. They're 7th and 9th during that period for scoring and holding up defensively. They don't interrupt the ball. Only North Melbourne and West Coast have won the ball back less during that period. So what is it? They're a 50-50 team. How can they be a 50-50 team? Against the best, they're 2 and 6 against top 8 teams. I just look at it all and I think, what's is it the system? Is it the buy-in? They go and get Rory Lobb. They haven't got Rory Lobb for 10 years. They got him to win the flag this year. So it's gone horribly wrong. Whether they make it or not, it doesn't matter. They're going to limp in the 8th spot, but it's not what they've designed this list build around. This list build is to win the flag in 23. Jones at 32 years of age and Rory Lobb on a 3-year deal that they don't really want to commit to. It's about the 1 year. It's about all decisions being correct if you win the flag or if you challenge for the flag. They're not challenging for the flag. They've been on the good end of father-son and academies over the last couple of years with Darcy and Ugelhagen. So they've got spoils that other clubs haven't got. So what is it? What's the problem? Is it the system? Is it the coach? Are they tired? Are they tired as a group? Because to me, I don't see it week to week. And to be in this position now, and I said it last night, I think it demands a full review. And some people tell me you overrate our list. You overrate the Dogs. I think Ed Richards is a top liner in our competition. I think Bailey Dale does a fantastic job. We've talked about those young mids. Bailey Smith, I'm not sure who Bailey Smith is. I'm not sure who Cody Waitman is. Some weeks I see Cody Waitman, I think he's Toby Green. And there's other weeks I see him and I think, well, is he still just developing? So where they play Bailey Smith, do they maximise him? Is he going to be there next year? All those sort of things start going through your mind. And then I think, put yourself in Aaron Norton's shoes. At the end of next year, he'll be out of contract. He'll have offers to go home. He'll have offers to go everywhere. It won't be a money decision. It'll be, do you think this club can win you a premiership? Because at the end of the day, that's all players are playing for. What's the sell to him? How would you sell the next opportunity in 2025? Given those names I just mentioned to you, some of them may not even be there, but even if they are, they're another 2 years older. Are they still there? And what is there? Is there 6th, 7th, 8th? Or is theirs 1st, 2nd, 3rd sit on the table? So I think this is just the start of the problem. Because if they lose a Norton, where are they then? So I think it's a full review, a full sit-down, honest, who are we? What are we doing? 1, are we playing the right way? 2, have we got the right people? Are our leaders on-field and off-field the right people? Where are we going and when are we getting there? And how are we getting there? Because it just looks all out of sorts. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, well, this is a pattern of behaviour now. And by their own estimation, they believe they have built a top 4 list. So we're entitled to grade them on what they believe they've got in front of them. And we keep saying is Luke Beveridge has been the master of the 4-week campaign. But the whole point is you spend the first 23 weeks making sure you're in the top 4. And they haven't been able to do that yet. You can boil it down to singular moments, but how on earth was Tim English taking that kick in with the game on the line and a chance to go the length of the field to win it? Like, how does that happen?
Well, it's clearly a team that hasn't trained the 2-minute drill. So even that, as laughable as that was, right?
That can't have been their actual 2-minute drill, can it?
Oh, no. No. That's a young man who had no idea what he was doing in a moment. So that's a calamity. And then he doesn't even kick the ball long down the middle. He goes wide to effectively a 1-on-2. Dale wins the ball and he shoulders out, facing into the corridor, facing forward. He knows there's less than a minute to go. They all know. They've all looked at the bench and seen the signs prior to the kick.
Yeah.
So why wasn't he continuing on that run? Why didn't they have the 2-minute drill worked out when they've been to the pointy end of the campaigns? They've been to a grand final 18 months ago and had no idea what to do in a 2-minute drill. Look, I don't have any answers as to what's going on with the Dogs. I have no idea. And if Bevo sat here, he would have something for us. But would you believe it? Would you actually believe what you're being told? Because in the end, you just got to see it. It's just actions. I feel like they're a club that's fought all of us at different stages, yet there's nothing to show for it again. So what is the problem? I'm fascinated at the end of the season when the cool, clear light of day, middle of October, you ask Amit Baines, what was the reason for the failure of 23? I wonder what he'll say. What do you think he'll say?
I don't know. because I think they'll be searching for those answers. I don't think the answer would be completely obvious to them in real time. I think they would default to, they keep having bad luck within games, but who doesn't? They get run aground. They lose 2 defenders in the Ballarat game. They cough that up. They lose Liberatore yesterday. So you can rationalise it. There's a difference between rationalising each act of God and then finding what is the cause of a pattern of behaviour. And this is a pattern of behaviour now for the team.
So last question. Will this group win another flag?
Yeah, that's such an interesting question. And it's unanswerable right now. But they won't win it if they can't graduate to becoming a top 4 team.
Yeah.
And they have consistently shown that they're not doing that. They're in a tooth and nail struggle to make the 8. This is a team that should have been either in the top 4 or knocking on the door of the top 4 at this stage. So and they've had this season where they loom and stumble, and they loom and stumble, and they loom and stumble. You got to find the root cause of that. Preliminary final integrity, PFI. Did Collingwood restore some of theirs on Friday night? The Darcy Moore injury, when we sat on crunch time on Saturday, they were still sort of clinging to the idea that it mightn't cost him games. I just feel like we knew from the moment we saw him pull up short that was going to be a hamstring strain, so out until the finals now. Just give us your overall Monday morning impression of Collingwood with PFI in mind.
They're going to get 2 weeks to look at the back line without Darcy Moore, and I think after the 2 weeks they'll decide that Darcy Moore needs to be more centre-half back than fullback because he's gambling a lot at the moment. He's trying to cover all parties. He's trying to do the job for everyone. There's 6 of them there, but he wants to be the only one there. So it's a great mindset to have, and it's the mindset of the Stars, but you've got to have more trust in those around you. So they won the ball back. When they were swarm with numbers, I watched the game on Behind the Goal Vision. When they swarm with numbers, they won the ball back 21 times. So when they swarm with numbers, they often leave someone out the back, if not 2 or 3 of the opponents out the back, and they cost them 7 goals. So being outnumbered out the back was 7 goals, but outnumbered where the footy was, they won it back 21 times. So I want to know what the balance sheet is. At what point does it become healthy for your group and what point does it become unhealthy? They'll have the numbers internally because they'll know that even if you stay 1-on-1, there's a loss rate to that. So that 7 goals might still be 4. So for the 3 goals, the extra 3 goals they cough up, they win the ball back 21 times in an outnumbered situation, outnumbering the opposition, and they go. Then they get territory. If they get score, they get score. If not, they get territory or they get a stop ball. So job done defensively. So this is why Craig McRae is playing chess and everyone else is playing checkers because they're doing it so different. And I called it Pythagoras. You need to know what the science behind this is and what the numbers actually are. But I do think that when Darcy Moore comes back, he'll be further away from goal and he can keep gambling and he can do whatever he needs to do defensively without the cost. He'll have the security of Frampton and Murphy, who is a top liner now as a defender, a top liner. You've got to see what he's doing in the game to appreciate how good this guy is. He was awesome on the weekend. And I think your man, Adam, the mathlete, our mathematician dude, he needs to go to work for me on what the Pythagoras' theorem is.
I love that. And Bucks rallied round his long-term captain pretty strongly today.
Oh, he's put me in the pull your socks up for showing 2 clips of Pendle. So now I'm obligated to show the other 8. I've got 10 clips of him being slow at centre bounce. The time for Pendles at centre bounce is over, Gerard. That's the bottom line. It gets us all. It gets us all. He's still a marquee flanker or wingman or an extra on ball or after the centre bounce stoppage, but you've got to put your dancers in there. If you're slow as a hit-2 player, that's fine because they're usually tough and they're usually strong enough. But as soon as you're not the hit-2 player and you can't get from A to B in a hurry, you're in trouble as a centre bounce commodity. That's all we're saying. We're not having a go at his favourite footballer in the world. We're just saying the time for centre bounce is done. It'll be exposed in a prelim.
You spoke last week around the fitness, medical, conditioning staff. So St Kilda are pretty sure that Max King's season is over. They send him off. He goes in for arthroscopic surgery. They go, hang on a minute. This is not as drastic as we were originally thinking. You go, no, let's not do this. And 4 weeks later, he's back and he's kicking 6. And St Kilda are clearly transformed when he's there. That's not telling anyone anything. But for the footy that they were playing, then to what it is now, and the prospects is they still might breast the tape and be worthy of their finals position.
Tim Membry was back yesterday, and there's a 3-goal game, if not more, in the next couple of weeks for him. He was in the right spots more often than not. He set up a few goals early, and then he got a bit leg weary late. Just keep your eye on Membry. There's a performance coming in the next couple of weeks. He's a very, very good player. Like what the Saints have done.
Yeah, it's they've lived the whole year in the 8. I reckon that if we ran the perception of the Dogs and the perception of the Saints, everyone's loved the Dogs all year, and St Kilda haven't been treated in the same manner. Outside of their first few weeks drew the admiration of everybody, but it sort of looked like they're playing the footy where, well, if they come out, there'll be no loss to the final series. Well, they've restored their footy.
He's fun to dislike, Ross. He is, because you feel like you can join in most conversations. He polarises people. That's why we love him.
What they got right. St Kilda have got a lot right in the last few weeks. Loop Logics, the future of construction management. For a free demo, visit looplogics.com. Curiosity. So this is only a curiosity. Are the Lions inventing close finishes?
Well, this is not a curiosity. This is serious.
Okay.
So prelim final night, if they're less than a goal up with 5 minutes to go, they're gone. Because they just can't close out a game. They don't know how to finish the game properly. They don't know how to hit it. They can hit an uncontested mark for the first 110 minutes, no problem. Last 6 to 8 minutes, can't find one. They go blind. All of a sudden they go long down the line, or they try and invent things, and they just have to defend for long periods. They put a number behind the ball every time. It never works. As soon as they roll one back, they concede the next 6 inside 50s every time. So it's a massive concern.
Okay.
This isn't one we should laugh about, really. So Chris Fagan needs to find the solution here and find it quickly. 240 minutes of footy to go before the real stuff starts, and they're going to be tight finals. We all know that. So 6 points up with 6 minutes to go won't be enough. They shut the. I don't know what they do. Do they hit snooze on their alarm?
They're the 5 o'clock dinner bell, I reckon. It's just too early.
They try and shut the game down with 8 minutes to go on the clock, which is in reality 13 minutes of footy. So maybe leave it a little bit later. But gee, that's going to be a watch for us through the big games at the end.
Okay, the coaching position at 2 different clubs, and so the open question is: if Port Adelaide attempt the succession plan and Ken Hinkley gets the 2-year contract with the handover to Josh Carr, can you see that working?
No, I can't see. I don't like the reappointment totally. We've done this. So since the AFL started, so 1990, we've had 18 premiership coaches. 15 of the 18 have won a flag in their first 5 years of coaching. Choco Williams did it in his 6th. Bomber and Dimmer did it in their 8th. There's no one after that. So, yeah, I think it's a young man's game. So I don't know what they're going to do, and I don't care what they're going to do. But to me, those numbers are pretty strong.
Is that it just sort of feels like a halfway house. So marking time never works. I don't think that it's a halfway house going. We're rewarding you with the 2 years, but then you'll be handing over to the guy we brought in to be the successor.
Yeah,
I think it's a very strange. If that's the eventuality that's coming, I think that's very odd, and we don't have a great success strategy with these success rate with these things. So Paul Roos did it with Simon Goodwin. The circumstances were different. John Longmire got it from Paul Roos. The circumstances, I think, were different. The Buckley Malthouse thing didn't work.
It's the friendship ring, Gerard. I'm not sure what it means. It's not the engagement ring nor the wedding ring. It's, hey, we really like you. Here's 2 years. Because if it goes bad, it's only going to cost us for 2. And if it goes really good, well, we can worry about it then. But we're not really sure about you. We're not really sure.
Yeah, it's like we're not quite all in on this. And like the parachute there is, well, if we don't like it halfway through next year, are you really going to run out the next 18 months? I feel you can't live life on hold, and that's the risk, I think, in doing this.
But you talk about the Grim Reaper all the time. He's sitting in the back office, Gerard. So if you're no good, hey, don't give him all your good ideas, right? Don't give him your good ideas, because if you take the job in 6 weeks' time, you're going to need them ideas.
Yeah, I haven't understood this the whole way through. As you and I come at this from polar opposites, and that's totally fine. But Ken Hinkley is coaching as well as he has ever done. This is a new beginning of things, not the end of things. I just don't understand why they've been so reluctant to go, yep, we still believe in you. You're our guy. And if you're going, oh, we only sort of half believe in you, I just can't quite fathom that. It's almost like it's being done to calm the lunatic fringe. We know you're going to be up in arms if we reappoint him, so we'll just give you this. I think it's shockingly disrespectful to Ken, to be honest.
Well, not really. Like if they don't think he's the man, don't sign him. Make that decision.
The halfway contract, I think that's weird.
2 years is no good. It's not an endorsement.
And the second open question is, for all the talk around who's going to get the Richmond job, is the Richmond job a good job?
I think it is, yeah.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah.
My personal view, what we're seeing now is you can't spend this long under interim care. It always collapses. You get about a 6-week window to be in interim care. And once it stretches on, I think this is just a really natural fall away. You've got to have the permanent guy in the job.
Yeah. And this is the way it's come about. Richmond didn't design for this to happen. This was thrust upon them, really. So there's no fault of Richmond's here. And it's hard. It's a tough competition to stay motivated when you're out of the running. And a team that's had success, they know when they're not having it because they've had it. They know how it feels, and they know this is the opposite. So this just becomes a long, long finish to the season.
Yeah. And you're organising final bows, and then I think there are really interesting list decisions to make. Yeah, but it's just that the last 2 weeks sort of says the question with Richmond has always been, is this going to be the soft landing and a rise, or are they going to the bottom of the ravine? And I think it depends on your perspective as to where you sit with that.
I think there's some youngsters we haven't really seen yet. Sonsia, we haven't seen Gibcus. You know, Bolter's a work in progress still as a player that's got some games behind him. So, look, there's a lot to like about their list, and I'm sure they're a really settled footy club. They'll make the right call.
All right, the seedings for tyre power, tipping winners on tyre safety for all season. All I know is what to do with one, and the rest is just a jumble.
Well, credit to you because your seedings looked better than mine last week. You had Carlton in early.
Yeah,
at 2, I think. Yep. I'm looking forward to seeing what you've done. I'm really not comfortable with any of this.
No. So you got to leave one out. So I got Port Adelaide at 5. So I got the Brisbane Lions at 4.
Don't do 5. Don't
I know.
mention
No, I'm
5,
saying
please.
they're on the outside looking
in. That
in.
was a little soft sort of.
It was. So
the
the Brisbane Lions at 4, about to play Collingwood on Friday night. So that's actually going to play a big role in actually working out where they sit.
Melbourne at 4 for me. Good performance. Still, I'm just getting a little stone in the shoe. How important is Max? Is he too important? So 4, Melbourne.
They went 1 down to 4.
Yeah.
I've got Melbourne at 3.
They did get rolled.
They did.
Scored
this is the price you pay in the
seedings.
seedings.
It's a bloody ruthless game.
It is. I've got Melbourne at 3. Have you got at 3?
I've got Carlton at 3. Very good form. Probably the top profile in the competition right now. I've done mine this week for new beginnings as to how I think the flag favoritism should look.
Okay.
They're probably the third pick right now.
Mine's much more in the now. 2. I've got Collingwood at 2. There were parts of that on Friday night which were very reassuring. I still think there are a couple of wrinkles at the end of it.
A couple of wrinkles in this. I'm Brisbane at 2. I thought that was a really good win in the end. Adelaide played some pretty serious footy.
1.
Collingwood. I'm not in love with my seedings today, Gerard, but I've got Collingwood back at 1.
If you ask yourself who is playing the best footy right now, the answer is self-evident. The 1 seed is Carlton.
Oh, you're building them up to
just in the here and the now.
I know what you're doing.
I love every bit of what's going on here.
Minds.
They're winning in all sorts of different ways.
Can we do you think, on Friday night, live updates to your seeding?
Oh, that's
during
a good
the
idea.
Game.
Our seedings are for tyre power.